What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is David Hanlon, aka the Laptop Legend, and today I just want to discuss something that is a little worrying in terms of the future of the company of TSNP Humbl Pay, especially if you are an investor. Now, to me, it's a little strange because there's sometimes a dichotomy between what is good for the company that you're invested in and what is good for you as an investor. And this is one of those cases. So this news was released a couple of days ago, and I didn't really pay too much attention to it, but I did a little more research because I like to spend Saturdays, Sundays doing some more research on the market because you have a little more time. You don't have to worry about all the stocks that are moving. Everything's stopped. Obviously, there's not trading on the weekend, so it gives you more time to get in depth and really figure out what is going on with the stocks that you're interested in. And in this case, I did some more research on these warrants that were talked about. They had a press release. You guys probably saw it. And basically, they allowed Forwardly to buy 500 million shares of TSNP. And for those of you guys who don't know, what that means, a warrant is pretty much like a call option. And some of you guys might not know what a call option is, but an option gives you the ability, I guess the right, but not the obligation to buy shares of a company at a specific price before a specific date, if that makes sense. And so in this case, a warrant is slightly different from a call option because warrants create new shares to be given to the people exercising the warrants, versus options are based on the shares that are already outstanding. So in this case, those 500 million shares that Forwardly has, the ability to buy, those are going to be created out of thin air, and that's going to obviously dilute the value of all the other shares that the shareholders are currently holding. So if you have shares of this company, you're holding, 100,000 shares, and suddenly there's 500 million new shares in there, that's obviously going to affect the value of, what your investment is worth. And there's already around 4 billion shares outstanding for this company, which is what makes it a little difficult to justify insane, 400% increases in price in one day, just because there's so many shares outstanding. It had well over $1 billion market cap, and again, the app hasn't even launched yet. I think this company is going to do really well, but this is just something that you guys have to keep in mind, especially if you're investing long term. And this is something to look out for in the future, because these warrants could have a huge impact on your share price, especially if you have a large position size. So I'm gonna dive into my computer now, just so you guys can look at these articles with me, and I can explain a little bit more of the details around why this is so worrying for future investors, but also why it's probably a good thing for the company overall. So let's dive into it right now. All right, guys, so here we are at my computer, and you can see that Forwardly Inc. acquired these warrants to purchase 500 million shares of Tesoro Enterprises Inc. And if you don't know by this point, I got it pulled up here. George Sharp, who is the guy who was in charge of the merger between Humbl Pay and Tesoro, he is the president of Forwardly Inc. And it also says that here, but he's in charge of the merger, like I said, and he is also the president of this company, which is acquiring these warrants to purchase 500 million shares. And I did a little digging, and I was able to figure out, based on some, pretty simple math, what the warrant purchase price is at. And you can see here that they bought 500 million shares, but then you go over to the other side, this other article that I have pulled up here, and they sell warrants for $50 million in funding. And we can see here, just doing some simple math, $50 million in funding, 500 million shares. That's a purchase price of 10 cents per share. And if we go here, it says these warrants are already well in the money. If you have an option that's in the money, that means you could exercise it in this very moment and it would be profitable. And in this case, obviously, I guess when this article was written, the price of the share was over 20 cents a share. Now it closed at 18 or 19 because there was a couple big tanks multiple days in a row. But because of that, you can see here, obviously, if they get the stock at 10 cents, they can immediately sell it at 20 cents, and that is a huge profit. So they invested $50 million, but now that's worth an extra $50 million profit. So that's 100% gain on their investment. And obviously, there's some type of financial incentive for George Sharp to make sure that the price of TSNP goes as high as possible because he has these 500 million shares. And you guys might not have realized that, but that's what's going on here. So he has a vested interest in making sure that the price continues to go up, because can you imagine if it gets to $1 per share? He buys 500 million shares at 10 cents and sells them for $1. That's a lot of profit. I don't want to mess that up in my head. What is that, $450 million in profit? Like, that's a lot of money, obviously. So this is just something to take into consideration. And this is not something that is immediately going to be an issue, because we can see here that shares acquired through the exercising of the warrants will not be saleable through the retail market for a period of 1 year from the purchase date of the warrants. And they were purchased on I guess they were purchased on November 23rd, 2020, which means that even if they exercise the warrants now, which would create 500 million new shares, which would stink for anyone who's currently a shareholder, they're not gonna be able to sell those shares on the open market for a whole year. So I would definitely, if you're an investor in this, be very careful and watch out. If you're going long term, watch out for next year around November 23rd, because at that point, if the share price is $1, we could see some huge sellers start to come in. And if you watched my video from yesterday, you know that these hidden sellers can have a huge impact on the price of a stock. They can prevent it from going over a certain level. And say it's, hovering around 80, 90 cents at that time, and there's some really good news that happens. They partner with, I don't know, Visa or something, MasterCard. They partner with Amex, and their stock price starts shooting up. But then it's, November 25th, 2021, and suddenly there's 500 million new shares, and he decides he wants $1 for these shares. So he sets a 500 million share sell order at $1. That price is never going above $1. It's just going to keep bouncing, and eventually the sellers will drop off and the price will fall back down. So you just need to be aware of this if you're investing long term. Within about a year, there's going to be 500 million new shares. And they talked about they're not diluting it, within the next year. And they tweeted that, and I forget when exactly. But just know that that is not lasting forever. So if you think 4 billion shares is a lot, imagine adding a 500 million share seller into the market. And obviously, he's probably not going to sell all of them at one time. He's going to hold some, in case the stock gets bought out or continues going even higher. But I can pretty much guarantee he's going to start cashing these out, especially if they're profitable, as soon as he can, just to start locking in some of those profits, at least enough to get back the original 50 million that he dropped in there. If it's at $1, he might only sell, I can't do that math. What is that, 50 million shares? But I mean, again, the hidden seller that we saw only absorbed like 1.5 million. So you can imagine a 50 million share seller, that would have a huge impact on your stock price. So this is just something to be aware of. And hopefully you guys have done your research, done your due diligence if you are heavily invested in this stock for the long term, because that is what it means. I guess I want to address one other point too. This is actually a good thing for the company, even if it might not be a good thing for you as a shareholder long term, because obviously now they have access. If Forwardly decides to exercise these warrants and get these 500 million new shares, Humbl gets $50 million from that. And you can imagine there's a lot that money can be used for when you're a tech startup. So in this case, it can be used for the marketing of the Humbl global brand, the development of the mobile app and the merchant software, as well as distribution and partnerships around the world. So these $50 million will definitely do a lot to continue the growth of the stock. So I think if you're super invested for the long term, I don't think this is necessarily bad news, because I think those $50 million could have such a positive impact on the growth trajectory of this company that it could make up for the fact that there's going to be some serious dilution coming in, about a year. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for today's video. Hopefully you found it helpful and learned something that can help you out in the future. If you did, please drop a thumbs up on this video. It helps out the channel a lot. leave a comment. I'm trying to respond to all comments as best I can. Sometimes my YouTube app has some notifications messed up, so I might not respond to your comment if that happens and it gets lost with other ones, but I really do my best to respond to all of them, so leave a comment and I will try to respond. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on post notifications so you can see my videos as soon as they drop, and keep grinding on the weekends, guys. There's a lot of progress that can be made, and it can, help get you in front of the other people who take the weekends off. So hopefully that helps, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, let's grow better together.
Preguntar, bebé, dime por qué te mientes. No puedes esconder todo lo que tú por mí sientes.